That's your sister, right?
Oh my God, what's she doing with your boss?
I have no idea. This is crazy.
Her sister stole her fiancé. A year later at a party, they froze seeing her billionaire husband. Esteemed viewers, welcome to Luxurious True Life Stories. Please like and subscribe for more captivating luxury true stories. Let's get into the story. Diana Richard woke early in the small house she shared with her widowed mother Margaret and stepsister Tina Edwards. She repaired broken fixtures herself and worked as a junior interior designer, using most of her salary to pay the bills before buying anything personal. The home ran smoothly because of her effort, though no one openly acknowledged it. Tina lived the opposite way: late mornings, expensive deliveries, and constant social media videos despite having no steady job. She often mocked Diana's simple clothes and calm behavior, yet depended on the comfort Diana provided. Margaret stayed neutral, quietly allowing the imbalance to continue. That night Diana returned from work carrying groceries while Tina filmed a luxury lifestyle video in the living room. Tina barely paused recording as Diana passed behind the camera, and the moment settled silently, one sister building stability, the other pretending it. The next afternoon Diana visited a newly purchased apartment scheduled for renovation. While measuring the living room, she noticed a man studying financial documents at the balcony table. He introduced himself as Desmond Tyler, the financial analyst assigned to supervise the investment property. He spoke warmly and listened carefully as she explained her design plans, asking thoughtful questions instead of interrupting like most clients did. They spent hours discussing materials, lighting, and budgets. Desmond admired how Diana chose practical solutions over expensive decoration, and she appreciated that he respected her professional judgment. Before leaving, he offered to walk her to the bus stop, continuing the conversation about architecture and quiet city cafes. Over the next weeks he returned often under the excuse of checking project expenses. Each visit lasted longer than necessary, and his messages became frequent but polite. Diana sensed sincerity in him, steady, attentive, and reassuring, never noticing the private calls he stepped away to answer whenever money was mentioned. Desmond's visits soon turned into dinners, long evening walks, and quiet conversations about the future. He admired Diana's discipline and calm spirit, often saying she grounded him in ways no one else ever had. He brought her small thoughtful gifts, a sketchbook for her designs, a silver bracelet engraved with her initials. Diana slowly allowed herself to believe she had found a man who valued loyalty over noise. Within months, Desmond proposed during a private dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. His voice trembled just enough to seem sincere as he promised stability, growth, and a life built together. Diana said yes without hesitation, tears shining in her eyes as she imagined a home filled with peace and partnership. She announced the engagement at home that night, expecting celebration. Tina hugged her tightly, too tightly, her smile stretched but not reaching her eyes. She congratulated them loudly, asking sharp questions about the ring, the venue, and the guest list. Later, alone in her room, Tina stared at the engagement photos Diana posted online, her envy deepening into something colder and more deliberate. Wedding preparations filled the house with fabric samples, invitation drafts, and venue brochures. Diana balanced work and planning effortlessly, believing this new chapter would secure stability for everyone. Desmond visited often, but his attention slowly drifted toward Tina's playful remarks and bold fashion opinions during planning discussions. Tina began offering to help with arrangements, volunteering to coordinate decor meetings and cake tastings. During these errands, she lingered beside Desmond, laughing louder than necessary and praising his ambition. She subtly planted doubts about Diana's seriousness, suggesting he deserved a more glamorous partner to match his rising status. Desmond, flattered and easily influenced, started comparing the sisters in quiet moments. Diana remained unaware, trusting both her fiancé and her stepsister completely. Inside the same house where wedding invitations were stacked neatly on the dining table, jealousy was quietly rewriting the future. As the wedding date approached, Desmond's messages grew shorter and his visits less frequent. He blamed work pressure and financial reports, yet he still found time to stop by the house when Diana was late from projects. During those visits he lingered in the living room with Tina, their conversations low and private, ending quickly whenever Diana entered. Diana noticed the change, but convinced herself it was temporary stress. She focused harder on her designs and finalized the ceremony details alone, telling herself commitment required patience. Meanwhile, Tina encouraged Desmond's frustrations, suggesting marriage might limit his freedom and image. Her tone was sympathetic, but her intention was clear. One evening Diana prepared dinner to surprise him, only to receive a brief text saying he was busy. Minutes later she heard laughter downstairs, Tina showing Desmond the video she filmed. They stopped abruptly when Diana appeared, and the silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. 2 weeks before the wedding, Desmond asked Diana to meet him at a quiet cafe. His expression was distant, rehearsed. He spoke of incompatibility and growing in different directions, avoiding her eyes as he removed his ring. The words felt scripted, lacking emotion. Diana sat frozen, unable to understand how love had shifted so quickly. That evening he returned to the house, not for Diana, but for Tina. They stood together in the living room and announced they had developed feelings unexpectedly. Tina claimed love could not be controlled. Margaret gasped in disbelief, while Diana's hands trembled at her sides. The betrayal was not hidden or subtle anymore. It stood openly between them. Within days, Tina and Desmond moved into a luxury apartment funded by Desmond's questionable bonuses. Wedding vendors were cancelled. Invitations were discarded. Diana packed her belongings quietly and left the house before sunrise, carrying only essentials and the dignity they could not steal. News of Tina and Desmond's relationship spread quickly through social media. Tina posted glamorous photos of their new apartment, captions filled with phrases about true love and unexpected destiny. Mutual friends began whispering, some expressing sympathy to Diana, others avoiding her entirely to escape the discomfort. The humiliation was loud and constant, impossible to ignore. Desmond appeared publicly beside Tina at a corporate networking event, holding her hand confidently. Photos circulated online, portraying them as a bold, romantic couple who had followed their hearts. Diana saw the images accidentally while reviewing design inspiration on her tablet. Her chest tightened, but she refused to cry again. Pain no longer shocked her. It hardened her. Instead of responding publicly, Diana deleted her engagement photos and deactivated her accounts quietly. She moved into a modest studio apartment across town and focused entirely on her work. If they expected her to collapse publicly, they would be disappointed. Silence became her shield. Diana's new studio apartment was small but peaceful, furnished only with second-hand pieces she restored herself after work. Evenings were spent repainting cabinets, sewing cushion covers, and drafting new layouts on her laptop. Without family tension around her, the quiet felt unfamiliar yet comforting. She lived carefully, budgeting every expense and rebuilding routines step by step. Her dedication began attracting attention from clients who appreciated practical elegance over luxury excess. A landlord recommended her for a large renovation consultation at a corporate residence, far beyond her usual scale. Though nervous, she accepted, seeing it as a chance to grow independently without anyone's support. On the scheduled day she arrived at a high-rise office to meet the property owner. In the conference room stood a reserved man reviewing architectural plans, composed and observant. He introduced himself simply as Joseph Nathaniel, and from the first conversation he listened more than he spoke, noticing details others overlooked. Joseph Nathaniel was unlike anyone Diana had worked with before. He asked precise questions about space efficiency, lighting psychology, and emotional comfort rather than cost or status. His tone was calm, his posture disciplined, and his attention unwavering. He rarely smiled, yet when he did it was subtle and genuine, not performative. During multiple planning sessions, Diana learned he was the CEO of a rapidly expanding financial corporation, known for restructuring failing firms into profitable powerhouses. He carried authority quietly, never raising his voice yet commanding respect from everyone in the room. Despite his success, he preferred functional designs over extravagant displays, which intrigued Diana. Joseph noticed her resilience and professionalism. She never oversold ideas or exaggerated capabilities. One evening after a long discussion, he thanked her personally for her honesty, something he said was rare. For the first time since her betrayal, Diana felt seen for who she truly was, not for what she could provide. Work meetings gradually extended beyond business hours. Joseph invited Diana to review materials over dinner at a quiet restaurant near the office, keeping the conversation respectful and unhurried. He never asked about her past directly, yet he sensed the guarded calm she carried. Instead, he spoke about discipline, responsibility, and the cost of misplaced trust. Diana found comfort in the absence of pressure. Joseph never flattered or tried to impress her. He simply valued her judgment. When a supplier attempted to overcharge the project, he allowed Diana to handle the negotiation herself, later acknowledging her capability rather than taking the credit. His confidence in her decisions slowly rebuilt her own. One evening heavy rain flooded the streets after work, delaying transportation. Joseph offered to drive her home, waiting until she entered safely before leaving. The gesture was simple but sincere. For the first time in months, Diana slept peacefully, realizing stability could exist without promises, only consistent actions. Weeks passed, and the renovation project neared completion. Joseph began involving Diana in broader planning meetings, asking her opinions on future developments unrelated to her contract. She realized he trusted her perspective beyond interior design. During a late evening review in his office, he spoke more personally than before, explaining he valued loyalty above charm and clarity above appearances. He then made an unusual request, not romantic at first, but practical. He needed a wife he could trust for personal and business stability, someone grounded and discreet. He offered honesty instead of dramatic declarations, promising respect, protection, and partnership rather than temporary emotion. Diana was stunned by the directness yet sensed sincerity in his steady voice. After careful thought, she accepted. The decision felt calm rather than impulsive. They married privately with only legal witnesses, choosing simplicity over attention. Diana kept her name and independence, and Joseph kept his quiet consistency. A new life began, not built on excitement, but on reliability neither of them had known before. Months into their marriage, Diana had settled into a peaceful routine within Joseph's structured world. She continued designing independently while occasionally consulting on his properties. One morning an elegant envelope arrived at their residence, a corporate anniversary gala hosted by Joseph's company. He mentioned attending briefly was necessary, but his tone suggested the event held little importance to him. While reviewing the guest list, Diana noticed a familiar company name connected to the finance division. She felt a faint unease but dismissed it, assuming coincidence in a large city. Joseph simply asked if she would accompany him as his wife. She agreed calmly, choosing a refined dress from her own collection rather than buying something extravagant. As the evening approached, she prepared without anxiety, unaware of the collision waiting ahead. The event meant nothing personal to her, just another formal obligation. Yet across the city, Tina and Desmond were also preparing for the same gala, confident they were attending the most important night of their lives. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and polished marble floors as guests gathered in formal attire. Tina walked beside Desmond proudly, greeting colleagues who admired his apparent success in the company. She believed the evening would elevate their status further, imagining introductions to executives who could secure their future. Moments later the entrance doors opened again. Diana stepped inside beside Joseph Nathaniel, composed and elegant, her presence calm rather than showy. Conversations around the hall softened as people greeted Joseph respectfully. Tina turned casually toward the movement, then stopped completely. Desmond's expression drained of color as recognition struck. They stared without speaking. The woman they had discarded now stood beside the most powerful man in the room, her hand resting naturally in his. Diana simply acknowledged them with a polite nod, neither angry nor triumphant. The silence around them felt heavier than any confrontation. As the evening progressed, executives gathered near the stage area to address company matters informally among senior staff. Joseph spoke briefly with directors before calling Desmond forward with a calm gesture. Believing it was recognition, Desmond straightened his suit and approached, Tina watching proudly from nearby. Instead of praise, Joseph handed him a thin document folder. Inside were financial records tracing missing funds across multiple accounts. Joseph's voice remained even as he explained the discrepancies had been monitored for months. Every transfer matched Desmond's authorization codes. The surrounding managers listened in stunned silence as the explanation unfolded clearly and methodically. Diana stood quietly beside Joseph, understanding at last why the company name felt familiar. The gala was not coincidence, it was timing. Security approached as Joseph concluded the internal investigation. Desmond's confidence collapsed, and Tina's expression shifted from pride to disbelief within seconds. Security escorted Desmond aside while senior executives confirmed the records on their tablets. He attempted to explain, claiming temporary borrowing and planned repayment, but the documented pattern removed any doubt. Joseph formally terminated his employment on the spot, his tone steady and procedural rather than emotional. Moments later, authorities waiting outside were called in to proceed with legal arrest. Guests stepped back, murmuring as the situation unfolded. Tina tried to intervene, insisting it must be a misunderstanding, but no one responded. The evidence spoke louder than her defense. Desmond avoided looking toward Diana as he was led away, the image of control he once projected completely gone. The celebration atmosphere dissolved into uneasy quiet. Diana remained composed, not satisfied but resolved. The truth had surfaced without her effort. She simply stood beside her husband, realizing the past had finally reached its natural end. After the authorities left, Tina remained near the exit, stunned and abandoned by the attention she once enjoyed. Guests who had surrounded her earlier now avoided eye contact, quietly stepping away from association. Her confidence dissolved into panic as the reality of her situation became clear. The lifestyle she displayed depended entirely on Desmond's position. She approached Diana hesitantly, voice no longer sharp but uncertain. She attempted explanations, claiming she never knew about the financial misconduct and that everything had simply happened too quickly. Her words lacked the certainty she once carried, replaced by desperation and fear of social isolation. Diana listened without interruption, her expression calm rather than bitter. She offered no argument and no comfort, only a polite acknowledgement before returning to Joseph's side. For the first time, Tina faced silence instead of competition, and it felt heavier than any confrontation she had imagined. Days after the gala, Tina appeared outside Diana's design studio, waiting nervously near the entrance. Her clothes were simpler, her posture uncertain. When Diana arrived, Tina asked to speak privately, her voice restrained rather than dramatic. She explained legal fees and public backlash had left her isolated, and she hoped Diana might help her find work or offer guidance. Inside the office, sunlight reflected off unfinished design boards while the atmosphere remained quiet. Tina admitted she had mistaken attention for security and ambition for affection. She did not defend her past choices. She simply asked for a chance to rebuild somewhere unfamiliar where no one recognized her mistakes. Diana considered her carefully before answering. She provided the contact of a training agency that hired beginners for administrative work but made no personal promises. The gesture was practical, not emotional. Tina accepted the paper silently, understanding forgiveness did not mean restoration of closeness. The events of the gala shifted public perception quickly. Clients who once hesitated to associate with Diana now viewed her with renewed respect, recognizing her professionalism and discretion during the scandal. She never commented publicly about Desmond's arrest, and that restraint strengthened her reputation further. Her design studio began receiving larger contracts from corporate investors who valued reliability. Joseph continued to support her independence without interfering. He never used his influence to overshadow her success, instead recommending her only when her work genuinely matched the project. Their marriage remained steady: quiet dinners, structured schedules, and shared decisions without drama. Stability became their normal rhythm. One afternoon Diana received a message from her mother, Margaret, expressing regret for not protecting her during the betrayal. Diana responded kindly but chose distance. Healing did not require returning to old patterns. She had built something solid now, and it rested on calm foundations rather than fragile promises. With her reputation strengthened, Diana secured a major contract to redesign a chain of corporate offices across the city. The project demanded precision, leadership, and bold creativity. She hired a small but dedicated team, mentoring young designers who reminded her of her earlier self, talented but overlooked. Her studio transformed from a modest workspace into a growing enterprise known for integrity and refined simplicity. Joseph observed her expansion with quiet pride. At home, they discussed long-term investments and community housing initiatives, aligning their goals carefully rather than impulsively. Their relationship deepened through collaboration and mutual respect, not spectacle. They shared responsibilities evenly, each valuing the other's independence. Meanwhile, news circulated that Desmond's legal case was proceeding steadily, with substantial evidence ensuring accountability. Diana heard it without emotional reaction. The chapter that once defined her pain had become a distant headline, no longer capable of disturbing her present. Her focus remained forward, steady and deliberate. A year after the gala, Diana stood inside a newly completed residential complex her firm had designed from bare structure to final detail. Sunlight filled the lobby through wide glass panels, reflecting across polished floors she had personally selected months earlier. Clients walked through the space with admiration, discussing future collaborations while her team finalized finishing touches nearby. The work spoke for her, calm, balanced, and carefully built. That evening she returned home where Joseph waited with dinner prepared, a rare break from his disciplined schedule. They spoke about upcoming projects and a planned expansion into international properties, not as distant dreams but organized steps. Their partnership felt steady because it was chosen daily, not promised dramatically. Silence between them was comfortable, no longer uncertain. Diana later reviewed her earliest sketches stored in a simple folder she had kept since moving into her small apartment long ago. She closed it gently and placed it aside, no longer needing proof of survival. The past had shaped her direction, but it no longer defined her life. Ahead was only continuation, deliberate, peaceful, and fully hers. As this story comes to an end, remember that behind every luxury lies a truth few ever see. If this story moved you, support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until the next unforgettable true story, stay inspired and stay curious.